Hello everyone, and welcome back to Wargame Red Dragon. We've moved on from Recon to the Vehicle tab, and we have a surprising amount to talk about here, so I think we'll be doing 2 days in the Vehicle tab, the most of anything we've done so far for vehicles. And our first comparison, both clocking in at 45 points, are the Vickers Mark 11 and the Oslov 25 Tow 2, and both of these are just so exceptionally powerful when used correctly. I legitimately go back and forth whenever I'm playing in Commonwealth, which is admittedly rare, but I usually come up on the side of Vickers Mark 11, and I'm really curious what our resident expert here, Quicksilver the man himself, will say about these units.
So, yeah, the Vickers Mark 11 definitely the better all-rounder, but the Aslav Tow can be quite sneaky. The Vickers is great for openers and great for early pushes. The Aslav Tow I quite like for defensive, like to use it defensively, holding open fields and small bushes, because if helicopter gets too close, the Bushmaster can engage and the Tow can hit the tanks at long range, and it's just a great defensive tool, whereas the Vickers is, I find, much better offensive.
So we have two very, very different roles for that then, and I'm just curious if you can break down some of the stats here a little bit, just for maybe newer players who aren't quite sure what goes into making them so well defined for those two very different roles.
Absolutely. So, the issue with the Tow and why it's a better defensive unit is it does have a stabilizer, whereas the Vickers Mark 11 has a 55% stabilizer. It's also a cannon, so it hits instantly. There's no break of LOS.
Or missile flight time, something like that.
Yeah.
So the Tow 2, by the way, 70% accuracy seems really high for 45 points.
It is really good, but keep in mind you only get 4 of them, and sometimes that's not even enough to kill a heavy tank.
Gotcha. 25 armor piercing going against something like, well, I mean, I guess I'm counting that you hit all of them, right?
Tank.
So
yeah, but that's it.
It's not gonna happen.
I would really, the accuracy is more closer to like 50% when you factor in all the variables.
Gotcha. And then the one frontal armor versus 2 frontal armor is also a huge breakpoint, because that it really determines how much damage you take from incoming fire, and 2 is so much more survivable. It's pretty crazy. I think to get through 2 in one shot for heat anyway, you need 16 heat. And then for AP, of course, it depends on range scaling, but it really requires a fairly high amount to get a one-shot kill on the Vickers. It does not on the Tow 2. 10 AP, I think from either source, I could be wrong on that, but around 10 AP will get a one-shot kill on this guy, so I guess that makes it a little bit better in the opener there.
Yeah.
Both are incredibly
Vickers
fast.
also has, both have the exact same speed stats, but the Vickers has double the amount of autonomy. So you can be really sneaky with these and push them through forests all the way around to the enemy spawn. And on top of that, the Vickers also have medium optics, allowing them to actually spot stuff when they get there.
Yeah, so I guess more of an independent unit too. It's still not as good as having something like, for example, the French AMX-10 RC for Recon, although frankly the gun stats seem better. The 10 RC doesn't have a stabilizer at all, which always messes me up. This is probably a good time for me to point out as well, if you're ever playing with me or against me and I'm just sneaky by my nature. Yeah, I learned that somewhere.
So, don't know where you learned that from.
Yeah.
Bad influence, I'm sure.
No clue. So, okay, let's get down to brass tacks here. We have 5 slots in the vehicle tab. At most we're taking 2, shall we say, but we have to decide between the Vickers and the Oslov Tow 2, which one do you take, up or down bedded? And let's say first for a general deck, and then for something like motorized.
So for a general deck, it really depends on how you built it. So if your general deck leads towards more of the moto style, I would definitely put the Vickers Mark 11 in it. Vickers Mark 11 with an Aslav Recon and a couple of Wolverines, you've got one of the best moto openers in game.
Fair enough. And for the, well, I guess that answers the question. Up-vetted, I'm assuming?
Yes, I will always upvet my vehicles that,
11.
fill the entry fraggers of vehicles, it's like you want them to hit. So any increase to that, I will try and take.
Fair enough. Well, that makes a lot of sense, and I'm assuming if you said this is better for moto-style play, then it also applies to moto decks. So we'll leave it there, and that'll be our unit comparison for the day. We'll have another one for you guys here tomorrow.